much for that, Jay. Got it. Beautiful. All right. So, as you guys know, Olean Push starts tomorrow, which is going to be super exciting for you all. So, I thought who better to reach out to give one of our first talks than Carsen Painter. For those of you guys who haven't had the chance to meet Carsen yet, Carsen has been around since 2017 and has had many successful pushes, such as his 10K push back in 2017. In fact, he's actually part of my DM class, which is why I wanted to reach out to Carsen. He was #1 new DM last year and ended up being the third in the nation, which is super fired up to see. And in the past year, he actually trained 3 All-American scholarship winners, and even one of them was an 18K fast starter. And a really big reason why I felt that Carsen would be perfect for this talk is because even with SLC, even though we had that conference this past week, he ended up pushing 6697 CPO and was the #1 rep in the entire nation last week. So to teach you guys further on how to schedule a push, here is Mr. Carsen Painter.
All right. Thank you, Dana, for that exquisite introduction. Raise your hand if you're excited for Olean and Olean push. Just show of hands here. All right, now stand up real quick. If this is your first time going to Olean, just stand up. If you can't stand up, then I get it. Jasmine's trying to stand up. Caroline's got a hand raised. Cool. This is my first Olean push and first time going to Olean ever as well. Okay, you guys can sit back down. Jasmine, you can put your hand back down. Caroline, you can put your hand back down as well. Cool. So it's a bunch of firsts for everyone. But now keep your hand up real quick if this is your first push ever. Great. There's nothing new then. I still want you guys to pay attention. Okay, it's free, right? You don't have to pay anything. Yeah, there you go. There's some smiles. Okay, cool. I knew that was gonna get some people. All right. The first, I just want to really dive into this right now. The first thing that you guys need to do to have a successful push is #1, you need to tell everyone. You need to tell every single person that you know. You need to tell your mom, your dad, your significant other, your teachers, your coaches, your J-Brads, your grandparents. Like every single person that you know should know that you are pushing. If they do not know, that is not their fault. That is your fault, right? How many times have you been, like, throw a 1 in the chat, throw a 1 in the chat. If you have been doing a push or you've been working really hard as a manager and all of a sudden a family member like your mom is like, hey, drop every single thing that you're doing so that you can do this thing for the family. And you're like, wait, I had this plan, I had this goal, I had this, I had that. Throw 1 in the chat if that's ever been you. Yeah, Jasmine messaged me directly. Yeah, so like, yeah, 1's going in the chat. Awesome. Things are going to come up in your life. They just will, okay? So #1, you have to tell everybody. You have to have the conversation with your parents. You have to have the conversation with your significant other. Whoever you know, you should tell. There's a 2-part reason to that, okay? The second part reason is that it's going to hold you accountable. It is going to hold you accountable. Your goals are not real until you tell the world. Your goals are just not real until you tell the world, right? Especially J-Brad. You got to tell J-Brad your goal. It's not real unless you tell J-Brad. And then it's not really, really real unless you tell your parents, your friends' parents, and everyone. And there's going to be a significant benefit to doing that in the long run because you're going to have people on your side. You're going to have people that want you to hit your goal. They're going to do everything they can to help you hit your goal. They're going to give you leads. They're going to maybe buy that extra piece of Cutco. It's going to be worth it. Okay. So #1, tell everyone. All right. #2, well, you got to have a goal, right? You got to have a goal. You got to have a goal. Go ahead and throw your chat or into the chat right now. What is your goal? If you have one, you should all have one by now. The push starts yesterday. The push started yesterday, honestly. Go ahead and throw your chat in the chat, throw your goal into the chat. Norma, 10K push. There we go. Caroline, 6K push. I want to see numbers rolling in. If you don't have a goal yet, you should definitely come up with one before the day ends. Ooh, Lucas going big with a 20K push. Jasmine, 6K. Great. Wonderful. Now, when you have your goal, all you need to do is just kind of measure it out. Okay. So you get an idea of what the effort is going to take to hit that goal. So let's just do a classic 10K push. Okay. We're actually going to bring out the handy dandy calculator for this one. And I'm going to have to switch my screen sharing. Okay. So if you want a 10K push, I'm going to go with company averages. Okay. Your averages might differ, but it's nice to go with company averages, because if your average is higher than company average, then hey, you're looking good. You might not have to do as much. So if we want to do a 10K push, okay, this is the formula. You just need to divide it by an average order, which is 300, right? And then you get 3 repeating. So that means you need to get 33.3 repeating orders on the board, right? There's 15 days in push. I measured it out. It is the 21st, which is tomorrow, through the 4th of November. There are 15 days of push. All right. So that is 33 divided by 15. Let's do 33 divided by 15. 2.2 orders need to be made per day. Simple enough, right? So the next thing I would do, I would jot down what your plan is to get 2.2 orders per day, right? How are you going to get those 2.2 orders, Brad Ramos or Sid or Jasmine? Are you going to do service calls? Are you going to do demos? Are any of you guys doing events, service calls, marketing to your customers? There's so many layers to the business. It's important to get clear on what specifically, or I guess how specifically, you are going to sell your Cutco and get those 2.2 orders a day. Throw one in the chat if you are doing strictly virtual appointments. Throw one in the chat. Throw a 2 in the chat if you're doing a mix of service calls and virtual appointments. And then throw a 3 in the chat if you are on the events team and doing everything else as well. Sid, virtuals only. Ted, virtuals only. Cool, we got a mix. Oh, nice, Norma. Get on those events. Yeah, events are fun. They're not going to take away phone time though. Like, phone time doesn't disappear just because you're on the events team. Okay, I want you guys to totally internalize that. You're still going to have to make phone calls. The events get you a lot of great leads though. Okay, so if you know how you're going to get those orders in, it's really, oh, you guys can only see my calculator still. It's great. If you know how you are going to get those orders in, it's going to make it a lot more clear on what your schedule needs to look like. Okay, so what does the daily action require? That's really what you want to know. What do I need to do daily, right, Norma? What do I need to do daily, right, Ryan? Like, to hit my goal. It's all about the daily action. So my selling ratio is about 80%. Company average is 60. So if we're going back to the trusty calculator here, if I want to do 33 orders and my selling ratio is 60%, I need to do 55 appointments. 55 appointments. That's going to get you your 10K. Divided by the 15 days, that is about 4 appointments per day. I like to round up. That is about 4 appointments per day. You're probably going to make 2 to 3 sales per day. Pretty simple, right? Yeah, Brad. If you just do 4 appointments a day, 4 to 5 hours per day, can you commit to that? Or can you do like 8 on a Saturday, 6 on a Sunday, and now your weekdays are like, what is it going to look like for you? You might have school. You might have wrestling practice, right? You might have to babysit. You might have to drive your mom somewhere to the airport. I don't know. You guys might have stuff going on. So that's why step 1 is tell everyone. Tell everyone, because you don't want your schedule to have something random pop up, because it's going to. All right. You're just going to have stuff. All right. So if you have 4 appointments that you need to do per day, I would say on average, it takes about 10 phone calls to book 1 appointment. For those of you that have massive phone skills, it might be 5 phone calls, but like, we're going to do very conservative measurements here on this, so you get a more realistic idea of what the work's going to look like. Can I get a thumbs up if that makes sense? Cool. So if that means 10 phone calls per every appointment, Let's do 4 times 10. You're just gonna need to make 40 calls per day. 40 calls per day. Now, I'm curious, real quick. Raise your hand or throw a me in the chat if you've ever made 100 phone calls in a day. Throw a me in the chat if you've ever made 100 phone calls in a day. Yeah, we got Ted, Day, and Brad. Cool. I challenge every single one of you. None of this job. I challenge every single one of you to make 100 phone calls in a day, preferably on a Sunday, and it's an all-day call day, as we call it. When I did a 10K push in 2017, I made 100 phone calls on the Sunday, the day before the push started, which would technically be like today for you guys. And what that did, well, throw in the chat, how many appointments do you think I booked out of 100 phone calls? Carsen Painter, 2017, new rep, 100 phone calls. How many appointments do you think I booked? 7, 10, 70. Day. All right. I like you, Day. I booked 1 appointment out of 100 phone calls. I booked 1. Okay. And then my car got broken into that night at the office, and they stole my backpack full of Cutco. So not the greatest start to the push, right? I could have easily quit. I could have easily been like, yeah, maybe not this push, maybe the next push, right? It actually like put a little chip on my shoulder, and I was even more like, nah, I'm going to sell 10K even more now. Like these guys lit a fire, like whoever broke in my car, thank you. You lit a fire under me that sparked some crazy results. But anyways, I only had one appointment booked. So don't get discouraged if you just had a bad phone jam today or it didn't go the way you wanted it to. Just make your phone calls the next day. But I encourage you to increase your capacity. That's why we do pushes, right? It is to increase your capacity. Like, for instance, my favorite book of all time, it's called Musashi. It's a 1,000-page novel. 1,000 pages, Day. 1,000 pages, Brad. I talk about this book all the time. And why I read it, it's an amazing book, but the main reason why I read it was like, all right, if I could read 1,000 pages, I could read any book, right? Like if you could do 100 phone calls, Ryan, what is 10? What is 10? If you could do 50 appointments in a push, what's a week where you do 10 appointments consistently, right? Every week, you're like, it's just 10 appointments, right? When you increase your capacity, I think of like Nyan Preeter having a 59K week. That's as much as he sold in his first year as a rep, and he did it in a week, right? Increasing your capacity, like what is bigger? What can you actually do if you put your time and your effort into it? Okay, so breaking it down to the daily averages. Depending on what your goal is, you're going to have a certain amount of phone calls that you should make every day. My rule is if I want to do 10K in a push, I make 30 calls a day. 30 calls a day. 15 in the morning. It's important to do morning phone time. Very important to do morning phone time. Do not sleep on it. You're going to catch people that you will never catch in the afternoon. You just will. There are some people that are never available in the evening. And so that's why you want to really, really catch them in the morning, because they're just never around in the evening, right? And vice versa. You're going to have some people that are never going to answer in the morning, but you catch them in the evening. Okay. But you want to have morning and nighttime phone time. If you are doing 6K, I would recommend 10 in the morning, 10 at night, every single day. If you build that habit, it's going to pay off. I remember when I was brand new in Dave Powder's office, we would have Zoom in champs clubs at 8 a.m. I would roll out of bed with my stuff on my dresser, and from bed, I would make my phone calls to start my day. That'd be like one of the first things I do, just to get them over with, right? What do they say? Eat the frog first? Something like that. That's a saying somewhere. I know it's not a Texas saying, Jay Brad. I know that's not a Texas saying. But you eat the frog first. You do the thing that you don't want to do first, right? And it makes the rest of the day way more pleasant. And you have that like sense of pride where you're like, ooh, I started the day off strong. What'd you do today, Day? Did you make 10 phone calls this morning? Nah. Oh, you did? You made 15. Oh, you're going for 10K? Oh, that's pretty cool. Right. And also, do you know your averages? Right? That's the next part of the whiteboard. Do you know your averages, like your numbers? Do you know your numbers? Seriously. I mean, we can go with company averages and it's going to be a little bit on the lower side, but guarantee you Lucas Kaufman's averages right now are above company average. But if you're using company average, it's really nice. Like what Jay Brad was saying, track your stats. If you're using company average, that's great, but you might scare yourself with 55 appointments in 15 days. Just going to be real, especially for those of you in school or have other commitments. 4 appointments every single day for 15 days in a row might be a lot. And I get that. That's why you should definitely know your numbers to make sure that 55 is your number, Jasmine, right? It might be 40 for you, Sebastian, because your averages are better. So know your numbers, track everything. If you have a phone jam, I'm not going to call anybody out, but I heard someone say like, yeah, I think I made about this many calls. Track every call. You should be tracking every single call that you make because it matters when it comes down, especially when you're in a push. Okay. So what are your numbers? What is your goal? What do you need to hit that goal, right? According to your numbers. And it's going to be different from a 6K to a 10K to a 20K push. Another thing you should factor in is what days can you not work? What days can you not work? Because you definitely, Jameson Jones in the building? Oh my goodness, it's Jameson Jones. That's a pleasant surprise. Hello, Mr. JBJ. You need to know what days you cannot work and factor that in. This is a 15-day push. And if you're going to be traveling for 2 of those days, I'm pretty sure we're all traveling on the 3rd, and we're going to be in Olean on the 4th. So unless you guys plan on selling some Cutco on the plane or selling some Cutco when we're in Olean, you should probably factor in those days that we're going to be traveling, right? So it's really looking like a 13-day push, unless you have some phone orders that you're planning to do while you're at Olean, but I would not count on those, right? Those are just bonuses on top of what you've already done. That's how you run through the finish line. Is you're an Olean elbowing Ryan going like, yeah, I just got another 2 orders on the board today. And Ryan's like, dude, we're about to go like look at Niagara Falls. Yeah, I know. I'm Brad Ramos. I try hard. Yeah, try hard. Be a Brad Ramos. All right. And also, I want you to really think like what else can get in the way, right? What else can get in the way? And just write it out so it's not in your head. Write out all of the things that you're like, okay, I think this can get in the way. I think this person might get in the way. I think my girlfriend might want to, go on a date at this day. Like whatever it is, have it written out so that's not in your head and you can confront it now. And you can handle it now, like handle the objection before it comes up type beat, right? So just to recap, you number one need to tell everyone, tell every single person you know that you're doing this push and you have this goal. Number 2, have a goal, right? You need to have a goal because if you're just shooting at nothing, how are you going to be able to adjust, right? How are you going to know if you're off target? If you don't have a goal out there, right? You're not running, you're not even going towards anything. What do you need to do daily? It always goes down to phone calls. That's how I break my goal down to how many phone calls do I need to make every day. And I'll just divide them in half and do half of them in the morning and half of them in the evening every day, every single day. What days can you work and what days can you not work? What days can you do more and what days can you only do like 1 or 2 appointments? That's important to know. If your Saturday is just like, all right, I'm committing this Saturday to 8 appointments, that means that the following Monday, if you have like a lot of homework or school or tests, you can do 1 appointment. Or maybe you can take the day off because you made up for those 4 appointments that you needed to do on Monday on Saturday by doing 8, right? So strategize it. Where can I do these 50 appointments? Put them in your planner. Play around. If you have Google Calendar, play around with it. Move them around, right? And then lastly, think of every single thing that could get in your way, right? Someone might break into your car and steal all your Cutco. Hey, happened to me. But I still did a 10K push. My last order was at 6 a.m. on the day the push ended as well. Sold a homemaker. So anything is possible. And I want you guys I'm going to end with this quote. I wrote this down on Dave's notes at SLC. It's a quote that I've never heard anyone else say. I think I made it up, but I could be. J. Brad's really good at quotes, so I could be wrong. But the quote is this: oftentimes it is ourselves that is in our own way. Thank you guys.
All righty. Thank you very much for that, Carson.